everyone, and welcome to my channel Knitted Art History, where I'm sitting telling you some art history stories while knitting. And well, welcome to another video about jewelry, as you can see. So today we're going to be talking about Cartier. And well, before we'll start, I will say also that I will link down below in the description a book of a researcher. So he's considered to be like the main or one of the main researchers of Cartier as a brand, as a family. So really highly recommend you to read this book also if you're want to get a little bit deeper into the theme, because there's like a lot of very interesting stuff, and there's like more examples of different pieces of jewelry, because obviously I am like here I am just to overall tell you the story, how the brand started, maybe what some very significant pieces of jewelry were, or some significant stories, but I will not get into every very significant piece of jewelry, because there will be like I think it could be like the whole series of like not one video about all of that. So yeah, without further ado, I am grabbing my knitting. I am still on this sweater because I'm still knitting a sleeve. I hate knitting sleeves with all my heart. That's why it takes me so long all the time. So I'm just knitting this just when I'm filming. So yeah, so this is why I'm still here. But well, let's begin. We will start obviously from the beginning. So the founder of this Cartier brand was Louis-François Cartier. So he was born in 1819, so the beginning of 19th century. And overall, he was born not in a very rich family, but the little guy was very handy starting from the beginning. He was pretty skilled in a lot of things, and thus his father decided to send him to study with the Parisian jeweler Adolphe Picard. Well, I found info, but I could not confirm it, to be honest. But in some of resources that I used, there was said that actually Cartier's, like Louis-François' mom, she was very against it, because she like thought that it doesn't make any sense and he will not make money with that, and she was very, very much against sending her son to like a jeweler, and for him to become a jeweler. But at the end of the day, the father said that no, he's going to be he's going to study to at the workshop of Adolphe Picard, and this is how everything started. So more than for 10 years, Louis-François was in this workshop of Picard, and he was studying and gaining experience in like in jewelry work and also in clock work. I didn't find a lot of info about his growing up and everything, but I don't really think that it's very much important, so we will skip to 1847. So now a young jeweler, he finally decided to start his own well, we can say business, right? And he's buying so he's like 28 now, and he's buying Adolphe Picard workshop, and he starts his own in the same building on Rue Montorgueil. Louis-François, he started his brand as, well, first of all, to be honest, as a watchmaker and then jeweler. His workshop, his business is flourishing bit by bit. In 1853, he actually moves to a larger premises on the Place du Palais Royal, which was located in the first arrondissement in Paris. And this was like, if you're familiar with all these things, this was like the most fashionable one, quarter of Paris, and well, technically still is. So less than 2 weeks after he opened his boutique here, he had a visitor. So it was said that that it was an elegant lady that smelled very nice, and she was like going around the boutique and was like watching at everything. She was like signing, and everything. And she decided at the end of the day, she decided to buy 3 brooches from Cartier. That was a very important meeting. There was a very important person that came to him in his workshop, and this is actually how he gained this is how he gained his popularity, and this is starting from this period. Well, all of the rich people from like well, at this point from Paris and just visitors of Paris, they started to go to Cartier. So who was this lady? So Louis Francois, he learned later that his visitor was the wife of the superintendent of fine arts at the court of Napoleon III and the closest friend of Princess Mathilde, the niece of Napoleon Bonaparte, the Countess of Nieuwerkerk. He recommended obviously all these works to her, to Princess Mathilde, to Empress Eugenie, and well, again, basically everyone. And in just a few years, the Countess and Princess Mathilda, they bought more than 200 pieces of jewelry from Cartier. And when buying this, another little things, we can say women were not at all afraid to recommend the young jeweler to friends and acquaintances, knowing for sure that the master never repeated himself in his works. In 1859, then Louis Francois made his first order to Empress Eugenie, a silver tea service. And actually it was these three women that started this tradition of purchasing Cartier jewelry by members of royal families in 1856. And later a number of different monarchs will join them. I will tell about that. So in the same period, so in the 50s, he opens his, one of the most famous boutiques on Boulevard des Italiens. So it, again, was a little bit bigger than the previous one. And so the earliest jewelry created by the company, they can be attributed to the years of like 1850s, 55. Here we'll make a little note, because you see, we are not talking about large jewelry, this pieces that we now, modern people, when we are here, I think a lot of us, when we hear something about, I bought some, that some rich people are buying jewelry, that means that this is this large necklaces, completely out of touch, completely mauvaise things, as we can say, even like that. But back in this time, it's still, the main jewelry that was most popular, it was brooches. Actually, it was some cameas, because the fashion of this period of time was, they were pretty they didn't get any cleavages, they were, so we can say, more modest, but I don't think it's appropriate word here. But basically the neck was covered, the neck was covered, so they couldn't actually wear necklaces because there were nowhere to wear them, right? That's why they were mostly using brooches and cameas and everything like that. And this is actually what I was talking about, video of about Lalique, so check it out, because I will be mentioning about Lalique and Fouquet also. What about Fouquet? I've talked about Fouquet. I talked in Alphonse Mucha actually video, so yeah, check this out also if you're interested. But about Lalique, so he's he changed actually this fashion at the beginning of 20th century, because he was doing such beautiful pieces of necklaces, that women were like, well, we want to wear them, and as they were started to demand, not just as they started to demand for fashion to change, and for these fashion designers to change the dresses and everything to make a little cleavages or something, so the neck will be open now and they will be able to wear all these necklaces. So yeah, but in this period of time, so we're talking the middle of 19th century, it is still nothing changed. Just so the main jewelry was brooches and was cameas. He was making these things from agate, obsidian, from jasper, from pearls, malachite, onyx, and etc. Sometimes they also traded like Cartier, traded some ivory, even sometimes some individual pieces of antiques, but obviously mostly it was about jewelry and watches. Cartier was also receiving necessary items from other workshops, including from his former teacher Adolphe Picard, and in 19th century silver tableware was also an important part of his business. In 1860s, so the main types of jewelry in the Cartier range were bracelets, necklaces, earrings, and brooches. The first three types were mostly made in very linear classical forms, and in this a lot of researchers researchers actually see some influence of one of the exhibition, like pieces of jewelry that was presented on one of the exhibitions. So the exhibition was in Louvre in 1861, and that was the Campana collection. So that was a collection of Italian Marquise de Campana, or Campana, how is it correctly to say with the stress. And the thing is that she had like more than 1,000 pieces of like in this collection. And why it was so popular, because Napoleon III, he actually bought all of this collection, and this collection was consisted of Greek, Roman, and Etruscan pieces of art, pieces of jewelry, and Mediterranean antiquity also. However, you see, such classic forms reached their heyday in Cartier's products only in 1870s. Classic forms were most evident in bracelets, again in necklaces and earrings, but brooches were not limited in the choices of motifs. In necklaces and bracelets, this Greco-Roman style replaced the naturalistic form of snakes, of fruits, wood, and etc. A little later, in 1880, a gold chain bracelet that was called gourmet, studded with diamond, roses, and turquoise, were very popular also. But the most diverse style between 1850 and 1880 were in brooches. Together with bracelets, these were the most popular types of jewelry. There are records dating back to 1853 that refers to brooches, and these brooches consisted simply of gold or were decorated with mosaics, cameos, or Limoges enamel. Starting from 1870s, animals and flowers were dominant motifs, and not only for Cartier but just overall among Parisian masters in general. Among the animal motifs, the horses' heads were popular, a horseshoe was popular, and stirrups made up of gold and enamel. And such a horse theme was popular because it was during this period of time that horse racing gained an enormous popularity. And I think if you're familiar a little bit with horse riding or just equitation overall, like you know, such a race course, Longchamp, very famous one. So it was it was open in 1857, and also you see this was mostly that was English influence mostly, and it was called also like genre anglais, and was still strongly set the tone to the French jewelry production. The second type of animals which also appeared under the influence of Victorian England were various small reptiles, some crabs, bees, dragonflies, and etc. All this directly prepared the ground for Art Nouveau later. Cartier competitor Oscar Masson began using these motifs as early as 1863, while Cartier presented brooches with dragonflies and some salamanders and some turtles around 1870. Snake heads with these baroque pearls in their mouths as hat-pins became very popular in 1890s, and brooches were also made in form of various flies and butterflies. The third type of animals were, of course, there was fantastic beasts, so there was different chimeras and different griffins, and these motifs were motifs became especially popular in Paris thanks to the works of Alphonse Fouquet. And in the late 1870s, he was one of Cartier's most actually interesting suppliers. Fouquet presented his works with chimeras at the World Exhibition in 1878, and as early as 1883, similar designs appeared in the Cartier range, but they were obviously produced by a different workshop. The most original example that Fouquet gave Cartier was a brooch with an intertwined anchor, dolphin, and a sword in 1880. Of course, the other thing that was popular is bird motifs. So the fashion for jewelry in the form of birds was generally initiated by Cartier's competitor Rouvenat, and he especially liked hummingbirds. Cartier, he preferred birds of paradise, some storks, cockerels, owls, and etc. Cartier also created a motif of lovebirds, so there were like two birds that were sitting together on a branch, and this image was one of the most popular in the Cartier range until the 20th century actually. In 1887, La Ligue then supplied also Cartier with 5 brooches with his famous swallows. Again, you can find this in video about Lalique. Plant motifs were also pretty popular. So wild roses, narcissi, like Parma violets, some poppies, marguerites stand out, the most among the flowers in Cartier's works. And after 1895, this floral motifs also grew into Art Nouveau. However, Cartier's in Cartier's assortment, you see, there were barely any products in the Art Nouveau style. Even at the peak of popularity of this style, he obviously created, because obviously he needed to follow a fashion. And although Cartier used motifs that was characteristic of Art Nouveau, he still, tried to stick to the classics in his forms. In 1870, then, Paris and the world of Cartier changed, because in 1870 another protest revolution, how to call it right, took place in the capital, known as Paris Commune. So at this point, Louis-François, he already had a son, Alfred, who were pretty old already, and he was taking part in family business, and he was already starting to help bit by bit to his father. And Alfred, he spent this period in London actually, and he came back to Paris just in 1873. But so the Commune, you see, there was this socialist revolution, and new rulers were at war, we can say, with the aristocracy. And in fear for their life, this elite, this aristocracy, they tried to flee somewhere, and to do that they needed money, but they didn't have any access to banks, and thus they they turned to the asset that they had in their hands, or we can say on their hands, quite literally, so to their own jewelry. And you see, Alfred Cartier was very smart in his moves, because he took advantage of this situation. He took advantage of such a opportunity, and he started to offer to all of these aristocrats to buy their best products at a pretty low price. And Cartier, almost, as we can say, overnight, he created one of the most exquisite jewelry collection in France. After the Paris Commune, France became a republic once and for all, and people again were free to spend their money and spend as they wanted them to, and Alfred was free to sell the new collections to those who could afford this, who could afford their products. In 1874, then Alfred, he took over the management of one of their stores from his father. So over the next 20 years, Cartier strengthened their position, and Cartier not only received requests for the supply of ready-made products, but also made customized jewelry. Alfred also, had several patrons. One of them was Vicomtesse de Bonnemont. The diamond aigrette, which she commissioned in 1887, is considered to be one of the most recognizable early Cartier jewelry in modern photography, actually. Since 1880s, the Brazilian emperor in exile, Dom Pedro II, became the patron. After his death, his son continued to buy products from Cartier, and so on. And in general, during the entire existence of the firm, until the end of 20th century, when Cartier was bought out of family, so we'll be talking about that, Cartier family had patrons almost everywhere. And so business grew, obviously, and soon the jewelry house needed a new large premises. Thus, in 1898, the brand's store and showroom opened at Rue de la Paix in Paris. But in general, it can be said that only after moving here, Cartier began to really attract the attention of rich people, because already in 1870s, Cartier was quite famous internationally. They may not have had as many customers as they then began to have in 90s, but the firm already had a certain status among the wealthy population. Interesting thing also about signing their jewelry and their stamps. The first such stamp was produced back in 1846, that is at the beginning of the career, and it showed an ace of hearts in the shape of losange. Jewelry made by Cartier in the 19th century is now quite difficult to identify, although they must bear the mark of the firm or the mark of the workshop from which they were ordered. In general, the practice of signing jewelry, you see, was not very common in the 19th century. So this practice was applied only to some very notable products, or those that were presented at some international exhibitions, for example. Cartier started to sign, you see, to mark their products, silver products. None of the companies stay on the Boulevard des Italiens, but they began to sign jewelry only after moving to Rue de la Paix. Specially trained engravers, they applied the signature by hand in italics. But back to their boutiques. The difference in assortment between the stores on Rue de la Paix and previous one on Boulevard des Italiens the difference was mostly in the size and styles of the products. So the products in old shop, they had more this, bourgeois nature and feeling, as we can say, and were actually pretty similar to those made by their competitors. The French jewelry industry changed with the discovery of diamond deposits in 1860s and the founding of the Beers Diamond Company. So we will be talking the next week about this. I will tell you the story how one company made a lot of you believe that you need diamonds, and diamonds is so cool. Diamonds are very expensive, where in reality they are completely not, and they actually don't really have value as we tend to believe. So we will be talking about this the next week. I will not touch this here. After this diamond mines were discovered, not only aristocracy but also young bankers, speculators, industrialists, etc. They became clients of Cartier. One of the main reasons actually why Cartier moved to the Rue de la Paix was based on satisfying this new discerning customers, as we can say. And in addition to Cartier, other also master jewelers moved there, and just in general overall masters from various fields. And over the time, the street became essentially the main fashionable and most expensive street of Paris, and rent there actually was so expensive that many of even famous jewelers, they were not able to move there because they could not simply afford a rent there. By the beginning of the 20th century, Paris is coming to life, as are the great jewelry houses that are beginning to flourish. The downside of this, of course, was that competition increased. Alfred, so he recognized this obviously, and after Louis Francois retired, he said about developing Cartier as a brand that surpassed all of other companies. So the large clientele from Britain actually that was constantly visiting Rue de la Paix, they began to raise the topic of opening other branches in other cities, such as London, the most importantly in London, in the first place. The Prince of Wales was one of them who talked about this a lot, and the English public, they asked for that because they didn't want to wait for so long for the delivery from France. Queen Victoria then died on January 22nd, 1901, and despite the obligatory period of mourning among the nobility, they slowly began to prepare for the coronation of Edward VII in 1802. And of course, jewelry occupied a very important place in these preparations. So Cartier's atelier in Paris was barely able to process orders and meet the demand for tiara, necklaces, and more. So at this point, Alfred Cartier, he decided to introduce his three sons to his business. And so the sons were Louis, Pierre, and Jacques, and they were very active, and they also were the one who actually developed the brand even more than it was already developed. So Pierre went to London and used Hotel Cecil as in London as his headquarters. He was invited to Buckingham Palace, received several commissions from Queen Alexandra, and also began looking for premises for a studio in the West End. Certain friends of the future king drew attention of Pierre Cartier to Old Bond Street, but Cartier, with his helpers and managers, they preferred the new Burlington Street. Well, this is where Cartier opened their first shop in London in 1802. In 1909, they moved to New Bond Street, and Cartier were now the official purveyors of the British Crown. And later he received offers from the Spanish Crown, from Portuguese, Belgian, Russian, and etc., etc. India also. So the list goes on. So the period of 1904 till 1920 is considered to be like this golden period for Cartier. On November 1st, 1909, Pierre opened also the first American branch in New York on Fifth Avenue. So economy was growing, you see, and changing, and that led to the fact that many rich people appeared, so the demand for jewelry was incredible. Thus, Cartier decided that it was necessary to expand to America because, well, that was like the main place where, you know, new money was coming from, and they were willing to spend a lot of their new money on different luxury goods. Well, nothing changed, right? Everything's going on like this still. People are gaining a lot of money, and instead of like doing something smart with them, they're buying jewelry. And I get that this is also considered to be some investment, but I think you can find like better way to invest and make your money work than to buy some kind of shit, I'm sorry for my language, that will, you know, that you will wear once in your life, and you'll constantly be terrified that someone will steal it, and it will be just laying somewhere in a drawer and not, you know, serve any purpose. So yeah, again, nothing changed. We people are very consistent in a lot of stuff. Yeah, so this first store that they opened in like on Fifth Avenue, it was almost, as far as I understood, like a replica of the store on the Rue de la Paix. And obviously Cartier found a lot of patrons here in US also, as well as in Paris, in London, in St. Petersburg, and etc. Shipping jewelry to Paris, I'm sorry, to New York now, it was from Paris, it was even longer than to London, right? And it was also logical to open not just a shop, but open their own workshop there. And most importantly, as soon as possible, because, well, not only Cartier, you see, opened their first American branches, but also many of their competitors. In April, 1911, Cartier's Bond Street, London branch hosted an exhibition that attracted thousands of interested visitors. The exhibition featured 19 tiaras that were made for the coronation of King George V, which was taking place like 2 months after this exhibition. So what is this? April, May, June. In June, in the typology actually of jewelry, tiara occupied a special place until World War I, as it was part of the hereditary and monetary elite. Tiaras, it was kind of, you know, this kind of a symbol of like certain part of society, right, that completely tear itself apart till 1920s. And the economic conflicts of the time led to the disappearance of the tiara as one of the main types of jewelry. In Paris, it began to manifest itself much earlier than in London, and tiaras were replaced, actually, like in France particularly, by like these pseudo-oriental headdresses. Again, tiara went out of fashion in Paris, in New York especially, obviously. But in London, the situation was a little bit different. The nobility, they still wore tiaras, and its absence on the head of a noble woman was considered like almost, we can say, mauvais ton. So the Savoy Hotel even added the tiara to their protocol as a mandatory element of the wardrobe. And Edward VII also, for example, he did not like very much when his guests appeared without this tiara on their heads, and he, you know, he always expressed his displeasure. He made everyone know that he disliked that. In 1953, Cartier created tiaras for the Queen Mother and for, well, Elizabeth also. So the rules of court etiquette really didn't change. However, other noble people there did not perceive these rules properly. And for example, when the Queen was leaving, like some celebration that she was attending, a lot of people were, like, a lot of women were constantly, the moment that she would leave, they would like take their tiaras and they would, like, you know, give it to their helpers, servants, whatever you like. So yeah, so it's, you know, technically it was still an obligatory rule, but noble people, they already disliked it because, you know, they were able to follow the fashion, and the fashion was already, you know, tiaras were out of fashion in the whole world. So, well, at least in West Europe and in USA. If you are interested, you know, to learn more about Cartier's tiara, you can, there is like the whole chapter about tiaras in this book that I recommended you, and that I link down below, so check it out. In 1917, then the Cartier moved to another larger building, still on Fifth Avenue, and there was someone's house, and it was said that Cartier actually bought this house. The price of the house was a necklace in pearls that had like 2 strings of pearls. So I don't know whether it's true or not, and what was this about, but well, it is said that it was like that. And the architect of the Rockefellers family, Wells Bosworth, he undertook like a small remodeling of the house to give it more a shop appearance. And in different halls, they were presented different goods, different pieces of jewelry, different types of jewelry. So yeah. Basically, I think we also can say there was kind of like an exhibitional place also, so something like that. Yeah, also he believed that it was the opening of the American branch that took Cartier on a completely new level. The leading place among the brothers was occupied by the elder one, Louis. So his desire for perfection helped to create jewelry masterpieces that became famous all over the world. And if the product did not meet Louis' high requirement, then such product was never shown to anyone, and obviously was completely redone. All of the big jewelry houses of the time also had this strict quality control, but it was said that no one did such as Cartier. This significantly distinguished Cartier from any other brands and brought the brand to foreign market. The quality of their products were at such level that the company did not face costs related to low quality products. Main also thing of Louis, he was a designer also, and he was designing a lot of stuff in Cartier. And here, like interestingly, it is said that he designed the first men's wristwatch, which is like I don't really know whether we can, because I mean that was like when I was reading that the information, as I understood, that was put it that it was like first ever wristwatch created. It is not true. That was not a first wristwatch in the history that we know of. This model was called Santos. It was created in 1804, and it was created for the aviation pioneer Alberto Santos Dumont. So he asked Cartier to made something for the comfort, because people were still using these clocks on chain. Then also in 1914, a little bit later, Cartier first used a panther inspired watch design. Precious stones were created, the fur of an animal that would later become also a symbol of a brand. However, getting back to first or not, the first real wristwatch that we understand it now was actually created by the firm Patek Philippe in 1868 for the Hungarian Countess Kotsevich. So we know this because this company gives their documentation, they're writing down everything, and the company in its more than 170 years history has recorded every watch that they had produced. Therefore, it is partly thanks to this note that we know that Countess Kotsevich was the first to wear a wristwatch. There is also some other versions, like some other jewelers. They're saying that the first wristwatches was actually created back in 1570s. So what is this, second part of 16th century? However, we don't really have any, concrete evidences of that, so neither material nor written one. And also a very interesting fact that before 20th century, the wristwatches were actually associated with strictly with women jewelry. So there was strictly a women pieces, or pieces created for women specifically. But during the First World War, their use became much more popular among men, obviously. So we can say, you see, this one whim of the rich countess changed the fashion as well as partly the military affairs. If we will talk then about another brother like Jacques, for example. So Jacques in the company, he was a specialist in pearls. Therefore, he and his assistant, Maurice Richard, they quite often traveled to Asia, mostly to Persia and to India. He traveled so much in this part of the world that at some point he decided that it would be, it would make sense for him to learn certain languages of certain areas, certain territories. He learned traditions, he learned some costumes, and was pretty much aware of what is going on there. And we know also in details about some of his trips, two in particular, because he was writing a diary when he was traveling, and you can find a little bit of this again in this book that I recommended, because I mean I will not like retell you that because it will take a lot of time, but that was like just, you know, interesting info how he was meeting with all of the sheikhs, how like from Dubai, from other countries, you know, and just all these rich people, some pirates also, and stuff like that. Jacques, you see, when he was traveling like this, he was not only looking for places where to buy some pearls and other, well, maybe precious stones, mostly pearls, because as I said, he was the specialist in pearls, but he also paid attention to a local jewelry and to a local fashion. So, for example, after returning from his trip to Asia in 1911, he actually brought back many sketches for the company's designers inspired by local jewelry. In 1917, Cartier introduced then another pretty popular watch that is called the Tank, the style of which was inspired by the tire treads of British Army military vehicles. Also, another interesting thing about Cartier is that they were one of the first to use platinum in the jewelry world. However, they were like not the first of like in history of jewelry, because we know about examples of ancient Egyptian jewelry that were made with platinum. Although this material, just you see, it was not very like it was known, but it was not very popular until 16th century, because during this period of time it began to be mined in Colombia. What they were using, it was, I mean, Cartier, it was an alloy of special hard platinum that was lighter and stronger than gold and silver also. The creation of platinum jewelry pretty much revolutionized, you see, the art of jewelry and this field overall. Platinum was an unusual metal that was practically not used at the time. It was stronger than silver and gold, but very malleable, which allowed jewelers to create invisible cuts that increase the brilliance of diamonds. And sometimes you see they seem to be and you see, and they made this like illusion that these diamonds were not sitting on anything but just on a bare skin. As I said, Cartier was not the only one who were using platinum. In 1855, like at the Paris exhibition, the jeweler Eugène Fontenay, he presented a tiara which with a frame made of platinum, and the product well, it caused a sensation. We know from Cartier's records that in 1853 they were already familiar with platinum as a material. For the first time, we can see platinum in Cartier's work in a very small amount. So it was, you know, something like small buttons, like rings, like needles, and etc. From their official records, we know that from 1859, they used platinum for buttons. In 1874, cufflinks with platinum edging began to be made. In 1886, pins, also buttons and earrings. In the same year, actually, white gold was used for the first time in Cartier's jewelry. In 1894, platinum set diamond necklace and platinum bracelet were also created. In 1899, butterfly brooch, some rings, some heart-shaped watch, and etc. Why are we talking that, you know, highlighting this use of platinum by Cartier? Because at that time, back then, it was believed that Cartier, they were using the platinum of the highest quality in all of the Paris. The French brand became, so it was already kind of popular in US when they opened, but it became even more popular when they bought the diamond Hope and they like resold it to another buyer. So it is pretty famous diamond actually. So Hope diamond is a pretty large one, like 45.5 carats. So this Hope diamond was, and perhaps still is, as I said, one of the most famous diamonds in the world. And shortly after opening the New York office, Pierre bought a diamond that was believed to be cursed. Previous owners were haunted by misfortune and even death and everything like that. However, you see, Pierre himself, he didn't have any plans to, you know, test whether it is really cursed or not, and he sold the diamond to a New York socialite, Evelyn Walsh McLean. And so when he was selling also this diamond, so they had obviously the contract, and he had a part in this contract where he wrote that in the event of an accident to the family of Edward B. McLean, within 6 months, said diamond will be exchanged for jewelry of equal value. So originally, Evelyn was told that the stone was part of a 112 karat blue diamond from Tavernier that sold this diamond to Louis XIV in 1669. In 1673, it was cut to 67 carats, and from this period, the stone became known as the blue diamond of the crown. In then 1749, it was redone in another piece and was put it with another pieces. Then in 1792, it was stolen. All of that probably stolen to England, and in England, it was cut again to 45 carats. So this that we know it's now so from 112 to just 45. It takes its name from one of the buyers. So in 1830s, this diamond was sold to Henry Philip Hope of a prominent banking family. Hope then died in 1939, and the stone passed to his nephew Henry Thomas, who displayed it in Crystal Palace in 1851, and it remained in the family of Lord Francis Hope, who then married an American actress in 1894, I'm sorry. And well, interestingly, the Lord Hope became bankrupt the next year. Then in 1909, diamond was put at a London auction and went to the son of New York diamond merchant Joseph Franckel. Here it was apparently offered to some guy Vanderbilt at a price of $500,000. Enormous sum. Now, back then was something else. And in 1909, it unexpectedly appeared at an auction of only a diamond that was going on in Paris, and it was sold just for $80,000. So I don't know how how the price changed so fast and just within 8 years, but it changed, and so it was sold to Resonant, someone like this. So he was some kind of dealer or something like that, and this is where Cartier bought this diamond. Cartier bought this diamond from this dealer. And originally, so Mrs. McLean, she didn't really pay much attention to this stone. After her return to America, Pierre Cartier, he allowed the woman to take the stone for approval for the weekend. And she was saying that for hours, she was looking at the jewel, and this jewelry piece was looking at her, and it was and she was starting to imagine what type of pieces, what type of necklace she would be wearing and stuff. Well, she was, I think greed took, greed took the wheel, and she was like, yes, I'm buying this diamond. And as I said, so this diamond is considered to be cursed, and well, indeed, in the family of McLean, after this diamond became family jewelry, there were a lot of different very strange situations. So their 9-year-old child was run over by a car. Then their daughter, I think she was 20 something, she died because she overdosed on sleeping pills. Her husband died. He started to drink a lot, and he just lost his mind, and he died in a facility for mentally struggling people. And but this is all things, I don't really think that it is somehow, and it has to do something with diamond, with this Hope diamond, because mostly, to be honest, the problems that the diamond brought to McLean family, it was financial problems. And for you just to understand that maintenance of these diamonds was costing to Miss Evelyn McLean $26,000 per year. So it in our period of time, this is a lot. This is a annual salary for some of the people, right? And this is just for one diamond. She was spending so much money. So they had mostly these financial problems rather than it somehow affected their life. Although you see, the famous diamond belonged to Cartier for a very short period of time. Pierre, he was pretty smart, and he knew that Mrs. Walsh's extravagant lifestyle would link the Cartier name with the Hope diamond for, well, at least for years to come. Evelyn overall died in 1947 because of pneumonia or something like that. and because she became very weak because of her like children's death. And her collection of 74 items was purchased by jeweler Henry Winston. And in 1958, Hope diamond was either, I don't know, to be honest, bought, or it was simply given by this Winston guy to Smithsonian Institution. And as far as I'm aware, it is still like in this institution there. And just in general, during its history, Cartier has owned many historical precious stones. Again, if you are interested in that, there is like a whole chapter in this book that I recommended you. Like most companies of this period of time, Cartier did not escape Egyptian influence in their jewelry. So the first collection of Egyptian motifs appeared under actually Louis François, so the founder, in 1852. He created a bracelet in the form of a scarab, in 1854 a brooch in the form of scarab, and in 1860 a ring in the form of scarab also. So Egyptians' motives were constantly in the products. Some things were better, some worse. However, a certain rethinking of Egyptian aesthetics was brought by Louis Cartier. He, together with one of the most famous company's designers, Charles Jacques, combined these old Egyptian motifs with contemporary fashion, and sometimes in some pieces even with Indian and Chinese, Japanese motifs. In his Egyptian jewelry, Louis liked to use the motifs of ancient faience to decorate the products with hieroglyphs, like for example in the brooches and pendants of 1920s. The scarab motif has not lost its popularity either. In 1904, Louis Cartier, he actually gave his first wife a ring with scarabs. In 1932, he received an order to create a necklace with 14 earthenware scarabs framed by the decorative diamond lotus flowers. A lot of brooches were made with different motifs of Egyptian gods and inspired by Egyptian gods. So there were such gods as Isis, Horus, Nefertum, Sekhmet, and etc. Sekhmet, like products with Sekhmet motifs and her pictures, was especially popular in Paris. Cartier even started making pins for hats with her motifs. And also part of this, they also created, like Cartier also loved the motif of pyramids and pylons. So Louis Cartier was engaged in the creation of the Egyptian collection, and Jacques Cartier was engaged in their exhibitions. This is how the company kept interest in the Egyptian products. In 1937, then even Jacques Cartier was invited to Egypt for the wedding of King Farouk, and the following year to Albania for the wedding of King Zog I. The culmination of popularity of Egyptian products was in the late 1920s, although in general the demand for Egyptian motifs lasted until the beginning of the Second World War. And in 1929, even getting back a little bit in time, Jacques hosted King Fuad, and the same year Cartier, they received a royal warrant as suppliers of jewelry for the Egyptian court. Indian motifs also occupied a very large and huge place in Cartier's collection. So the company began to pay special attention to India after the funeral of Queen Victoria, because they were ordered several objects in this Indian style, so this Queen Victoria will be buried with. And in Britain, the admiration for India was much greater than in France, obviously, which is logical, right? Their own colony and everything, plus Queen Victoria popularized a lot of Indian things. And so it was from here that, you know, that Cartier started to be even more and more familiar about Indian art. And Jacques, he was actually like traveling to India and going, you know, meeting there a lot of different people and stuff. But a part of like this, part of Jacques travels, just overall many rich Indians, they arranged tours to Europe almost every year. So they were well acquainted with the brand and their products, and they ordered a lot of stuff from them. So in the 1920s, under the close supervision of Louis, company began work on its largest commission, remodeling the crown jewels of the Maharaja of Patiala. In 1925, the ruler of Patiala gave his most valuable specimens to Cartier. So the work was going on overall for 3 years. And designers, you know, took into account the traditional forms of Indian jewelry and combined them with the new Art Deco trends of the time. So it was like, so they produced different pieces of jewelry. Like, for example, they produced a natre. I'm sorry if I'm butchering this. So what is this? It's this nose ring that was set with diamonds, rubies, emeralds, and sapphires. Some anklets, also armlets, and etc. Also decorated the khatpu. Again, sorry if I pronounced it not correctly. So it is like this traditional Rajasthani wedding ornament that was worn on the back of the hand, that was combining the bracelet with the rings. In total, they filled 36 pages of inventory journal, so you can imagine how many pieces of jewelry they created for Maharaja Patiala. After the work was done in 1928, before sending all of these pieces, Cartier, they exhibited their like main and the most amazing pieces out of this collection, out of this order, in Paris, in their magazine Rue de la Paix. Not magazine, shop, I'm sorry, in their shop Rue de la Paix, before, as I said, before sending them to Patiala. But I will highlight here like the most famous product out of that I think like after like what Met Gala of like few years back, a lot of you know that. This is a necklace, like Patiala necklace. It was made up of 5 chains and a neck collar. I think that a lot of you are familiar with this neck collar. So it was set with 2,930 diamonds. One of these were the world's 7 largest diamond, known as the De Beers diamond, weighing 234.5 carats in its final setting. So it remains the world's largest cushion cut yellow diamond, and it is roughly the size of a golf ball. The platinum mounted necklace bore 7 other exceptionally large diamonds weighing between 18 and 73 carats, as well as the finest Burmese rubies. The necklace can be seen for the last time in a photo from 1946. Then in 1948, well, it disappeared. And obviously there are several theories how it disappeared and why. So the first one, and the logical one, is that it was just stolen from somewhere who had the access to the treasury of the Maharaja. However, it is interesting that throughout the history, like, we don't really know that there were like, no one was caught, and there's like not even any information about some well, suspects, or whether there were some kind of people that were detained or something, like nothing. So it leads to second theory that no one stole anything, and the necklace was actually just sold in a time of need. Because in 1947, just 1 year before this necklace was reported missing, India gained independence from British Empire, right? And Patiala then was a self-governing princely state of the British Indian Empire, was annexed to the newly independent Indian Union. And this change put financial pressure on all of the Maharajas, obviously, and it was claimed that the Kings of Patiala necklace was one of the main assets liquidated to secure their funds. And this theory postulates that this was done in secret to avoid embarrassment and avoid also any questions about whether the item belonged to the royal family or actually to the whole state. So for the next 32 years, there were no mentioning of necklace, and suddenly in 1982, the central element of the necklace was found, the De Beers diamond. It appeared at an auction in Geneva, and it was bought by someone for approximately like it was something like 3 or a little bit more than $3 million, and it disappeared again. So yeah, in a lot of auctions you can actually buy things anonymously, so it's you know, no surprise. 16 years later, in 1998, a Cartier employee named Eric Nussbaum, he spotted parts of the necklace in a thrift store in London, and it was described as just a skeleton of the necklace. It was stripped of most of the diamonds and rubies. Cartier eventually bought this piece, bought everything that was left from this once amazing Patiala necklace, and they spent the next 4 years restoring it, replacing the missing stones with cubic zirconia and synthetic rubies also. The location of the beer diamonds is, well, still, as far as I read and as far as I saw, is still unknown. So we have no idea where it's gone. But getting back again in time, so after this order was done in 1928, like a lot of Maharajas were like started to order their own also pieces to Cartier, and they were sending their own precious stones from India to Paris, to London, like whatever. So Cartier, you know, at the end of the day, they gained Cartier jewelers. I mean, they gained a lot of experience in working with Indian forms and also motifs. And you see, this actually helped, like working with Middle East and working with Indian Maharajas and everything. It actually helped Cartier to survive this Great Depression of 1930s that was in US and that also got to Europe at some point. And well, many companies did not survive that. During this period also they were approached by one of the other Maharajas, so Maharaja of Navanagar, and so he managed this small principality where pearls were mined. He ordered a Cartier necklace of 6 rows of pearls embellished with an emerald, and it's called a necklace, and he asked for like this necklace form, but it was not for the neck, it was for the decoration of his or whatever his siblings, or I don't know, for the decoration of a turban. Returning to Europe in the 1920s and early 30s, so it was period of time of Art Deco and also of like avant-garde, so the very famous Bauhaus, this design school by Walter Gropius appeared, and well, Cartier kind of was influenced by that, but to be honest, not very much, because it was not their aesthetics. Louis Cartier with Charles Jacques, they used this new geometric shape, but they adapted them with understanding of their own company aesthetics. Their work was modern, but the products did not acquire this, you know, mechanized character, so they limited the geometry to just some ornamental frames on brooches, on some cigarette cases, and etc. In addition, well, not all Cartier products were suited to geometry, because, you know, such ornaments, they were not used on, for example, very large products to avoid this monotonous effect. The beginning also of this emancipation era, right, we can say, the jewelry house was headed by a woman. The cult figure of Parisian fashion, Jean Toussaint, who worked for many years with Louis Cartier, became the director of the jewelry department of the company in 1933. During the occupation, the Cartier jewelry house became an active participant in a resistance movement also. In particular, Jean Toussaint is the author of a brooch that resembled a bird in a cage, which, as you can easily guess, became also a symbol of Paris, captured by Nazis, and Jean displayed the brooch in the main window of the store under the noses of the German occupiers, and well, obviously they didn't like that, and they at some point they captured her, and she was in prison, as we can say, but thanks to Madame Chanel. She was saved, as we can say, and she was freed, and in 1944 she created the famous freed bird brooch. Interestingly also, so this Madame Toussaint, she also had a nickname Panther, and later that was actually her who established the status of the Panther, as a symbol of the house of Cartier. According to researcher of brand, this historian Hans Nadelhoffer, so his book I linked down below, the panther motif was first played out in a design of a rectangular pendant released in 1914. A watch done with onyx spots on the bracelet appeared a little later, but this same year, 1914, as I already said. One of the most famous pieces was an elegant brooch created in the late 1940s for Wallis Simpson, also known as Duchess of Windsor. The brooch is made in the form of a diamond and rusted platinum figure of a panther, which sits majestically on a huge sapphire cabochon, weighing approximately 47 carats. However, to be honest, from this collection of Lady Simpson, the other brooch became even more popular. There was the brooch with flamingo that is standing on one leg. On May 10, 1940, Paris was occupied by Germans. The following August, all of the Cartier's leading workers were imprisoned. Louis Cartier, at this point, he was in Lisbon. To be honest, I don't know how, why, whatever, but he was in Lisbon. He was waiting for a visa to United States. The workshop on Rue d'Argenson was temporarily closed, but the store on the Rue de la Paix was still open, but obviously with a much smaller range of products. During this period, one of the main tasks for the first firm was not to run into Göring. So he was one of the heads in this Nazi regimes and everything. I think you heard about him most definitely, because he lived in nearby in Ritz. The goal was to save as much jewelry as possible, and although Cartier had already, shown their records and inventory books to the Germans, they still had to be very careful. Therefore, the Cartiers secretly took their most valuable things to Biarritz, where in the summer of 1940s, a Cartier factory with 54 employers was temporarily opened, and in London, their London branch, their London office, the main threat was obviously constant air raids, constant air strikes. Shortly before his death, Louis Cartier was said to have instructed Etienne Bellinger, the sales director in London, to move the London stock to a safe location at the Kintyre Peninsula in the Scottish Highlands. So Bellinger had already provided office space in New Bond Street, his house, and also his signature Rolls-Royce at the disposal of General de Gaulle, the leader of the French, Free French government in London. Designer Rupert Emerson and George Charity received at that time an order to design insignia and also medals for the de Gaulle's enterprises, which were to end triumphantly in 1944 with the victory parade through the streets of Paris. So Louis and Jacques, they died not long after the beginning of the war, just a few months apart in 1942, and Cartier remained a family business until 1964. So Pierre managed the company single-handedly. But in 1964, well, Pierre died also, and children of three brothers, they decided to sell each other, each branch of the companies separately. Then in 1972, a consortium led by the hero of the French resistance movement of the Second World War, Robert Hawke, he bought all of the branches of the company, so Cartier still remains united today. The same year, Robert Hawke presented the Le Masque de Cartier collection. This collection included some leather goods, some scarves, fragrances, sunglasses, tableware, and well, etc., etc. And these items were offered at prices lower than their luxury jewelry, and this move made the world of Cartier products accessible to, well, more customers, and continued the brand's stunning success in social circles. After the death of Robert Hawke in 1979, the management of the company passed into the hands of one of the investors of the company, Joseph Canuire, who united all the branches under the Cartier Monde banner, later involving his wife Micheline Canuire, who headed the Haute Joaillerie department. One of the most important dates in the brand's development was 1999, when the company became part of the Swiss corporation Richemont, a global giant in the in the field of luxury goods products. So during this, the first years of 2000, they opened the Swiss manufacture in 2001. They started doing again the tank watch model in 2002. They renewed the Panther line in 2003, and etc., etc. And all of this obviously led to even bigger and bigger development and interest in this brand from society and, well, wealthy people mostly. So since 1973, the Cartier Jewellery and Watch House has been creating products made by Cartier craftsmen throughout the brand's history and constantly adding to the legendary jewelry collection. Today, the Cartier collection combines 1,500 exhibits, of which the ancient ones dates back to 1860s, and the modern one dates back to the end of 20th century, beginning of 21st century, obviously. To be honest, now I have so many questions with I really don't understand. I think that if I was Cartier, like Louis Francois or Alfred, or I think Louis also, I would like, you know, turn in my grave if I would see what they are doing now. Because like, what is this bracelet about? What is this bracelet in the form of a nail is about? Also, I don't understand. Like, I can take you know, I can take a nail from my workshop, like bend it, and you will have a Cartier thing, you know. So it's not interesting. It's not interesting. It doesn't. It shows just, again, it shows just how people are. Well, people with money, new money, they are like buying just that. Oh, someone said that Cartier is a thing, is a piece that you must have if you are very rich. But what is the point of that? Like, again, it's not beautiful, it's not interesting. Like, you're literally wearing just a piece of what, of gold. And I'm not, to be honest, even sure that they are doing it completely out of gold. Let's be fair. I mean, obviously they're most probably saying that they are doing this from gold or something, considering the price of this shit. But I, to be honest, very much doubt it. So yeah, because a lot of jewelry company right now, they're not doing anything from, they're saying that this is gold and everything, but this is not gold at all. It's gilded, but you know, not completely made of gold. The same thing as with Bugatti. So Carlo Bugatti, like, if you don't know Bugatti, it's not like, now we know this name as mostly as a car brand, car name, but originally it was actually Carlo Bugatti. He was a designer of furniture, and this is how everything started. I have a video about him if you're interested, so also will link it down. It was great, enormously beautiful. That was like very intricate. So he is a master of Art Nouveau period, and again, very, very interesting stuff, very unique even for Art Nouveau. So yeah, so I think that if I was Bugatti, I would see what Bugatti now. So Bugatti, they still have the clothing brand and they still have the furniture brand. If I would see what like they are doing now, I would turn in my grave also, you know. I would actually haunt these people for the rest of their life, because what is this, you know, this is such a downgrade in this artistry, we can say. And the same with Cartier. Again, what is this piece of, like, what are this bracelet for? What is this about? Like, this is how you can see a very stupid person who is just buying all of these brands and everything just for the sake of buying a brand. Like, sorry, not sorry, as we can say. But, well, yeah. So to end all of this, you know, Cartier maintains all of the registration records, obviously photographs, some sketches, and a lot of different other items from the house's heritage in 3 archives. So the main archive obviously is located on Rue de la Paix in Paris, the second in London, and the third in New York. Yeah, so this is everything that I have for today about Cartier. Hope that was interesting for you. Hope that you found out something new for yourself, and I wish you all the best and hope to see you in the next videos. Bye bye.